Welcome to today's training. My name is Carissa Reed, and today's training is going to be on the 5 reasons your self-care isn't healthy. Hopefully, this will be informative and useful to your life. I want to kind of give you a brief overview, and we are going to jump right into this lesson. So, brief overview about Reed Fundamentals. We provide mental health education focused on resilience. I also do one-on-one coaching to walk alongside you as you strive to achieve your mental wellness goals. We have 3 different areas of focus that all fall under resilience. So the first one is going to be our Black teen mental health priority, and this addresses topics that impact our youth and their mental health. For the love of self is about our 10 extensions of self and how we can care for our whole self and achieve balance. And finally, mental health trainings such as these that discuss a variety of topics under the personal traits of resilience. I left my contact information on the slide, so you can feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm usually available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's jump into today's agenda. So we're going to define self-care, discuss the history of the concept of self-care, identify the 10 extensions of self, and apply the ranking system to our self-care practices. So the first reason, we're jumping right in, guys. First reason your self-care is not helping you is because it's not purpose-driven. When considering how to incorporate self-care, ask yourself, what results do I want to achieve from this self-care practice? Most people will respond to that question with, I want to feel better or be more relaxed or calm. But to what end? After you achieve the state of calmness, then what? How will this moment impact the rest of your life? Many people engage in self-care behaviors without a clear picture of the results they wish to achieve. This lack of purpose is primarily because most people do not fully grasp what self-care is. The World Health Organization defines self-care as the ability of individuals, families, and communities to promote health, prevent disease, maintain health, and cope with illness and disability with or without the support of a healthcare provider. The term self-care took the world by storm, and over time, its definition has evolved. Let's take a closer look. So I believe that in order for you to effectively engage in any practice, be it self-care or a new fitness program, you must have a solid understanding of what it is and how the concept or idea applies to you and your life. Before I jump into the modern perspective of the term, I think it is important to incorporate some historical context into the discussion. Let's go back to the 1950s. Self-care first emerged in the medical field in the 1950s. Psychiatrists encouraged self-care to get the institutionalized patients to become more independent. They were tasked with taking on basic self-care maintenance and wellness practices such as taking walks and attending to hygiene. In the 1960s, self-care studies highlighted the impact that work-related stress had on the overall health of the employee. This study focused on first responders who were experiencing post-traumatic stress and addressed the prevalence of fatigue and burnout from work. In the 1970s, the concept of self-care finally was made popular and mainstream due to the Black Panthers' fight for medical reform. African Americans were receiving subpar medical care if they were treated at all. The Black Panthers promoted resilience within the Black community. This call to action was to motivate Black people to take better care of their mental and physical health despite the corrupt, racist, political, and medical systems that denied them adequate care. The 1980s continued with the momentum of the Black Panthers' push for medical reform. A young African American lady by the name of Audre Lorde called her self-care an act of political warfare. After being diagnosed with cancer and not receiving proper care, Audre journaled about her fight for survival. One popular quote that you see listed on this screen was taken from her journal, her book, The Burst of Light. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. I want you to let this sit with you for a minute. How do these words resonate with you? I want to point out the last part of this quote. That is an act of political warfare. I mainly point this out because in my research, I noticed that many people that reposted her quote omitted this section. Now, this could be because they feel like it's controversial, or others might feel that this part no longer applies. But please remember that even in 2021, there are communities of people that are experiencing disparities in the quality and access to medical care. Let's fast forward to 2016. The idea of self-care went underground for a period of time as larger issues began to surface, but it then re-emerged in the mainstream in 2016. 2016 was the year of a more glamorized take on self-care. Self-care was promoted as a need to get away, relax, and vacation to recharge. This message, although true, made people that could not afford a day at the spa or vacation in the Bahamas feel as though self-care did not apply to them. Today, self-care embodies all of these definitions. Independence, being proactive in the maintenance of your health. Mindfulness, being aware of the impact your life and work has on your mental health. Resilience, medical reform, recovering in the face of adversity. And stepping away, taking time to get away from the demands of life and recharge your mind, body, and spirit. The need to be proactive in our own health and wellness is more evident now than ever. American citizens become over-reliant on a politically charged and overtaxed healthcare system. When the system crashes or disappoints us, we are left struggling to care for ourselves. Implement self-care practices into your daily lives with each of these in mind. Strive to know you better than anyone else. You are your first line of defense for your health and the health of your family. Start caring for yourself with purpose. On to reason number 2. That your self-care isn't helping is because you are not applying it intentionally. You are not planning to take care of yourself. Your self-care is mostly reactive. Most of the time, you take a moment to yourself when you feel overwhelmed or at the advice of a friend or a therapist after you've lost control of your mental and emotional state. The proverbial excuse, I don't have time, is used to validate your lack of planning. We live in a world where always being on the move are not only required, but it's glorified. Businesses operate with a distance from their employees, caring more about a profit than the people they employ. Vacation days are held hostage as management claims that they need the person present in order for the business to operate. We are taught that high goals and sacrifices equate to success. Meanwhile, people are struggling to keep up with the demands of life and family. They are going to work sick because they seldom are granted time off or pay is too low to afford to step away. Depression and anxiety are at an all-time high as people struggle to keep up with the demanding world. Self-care is not a luxury, it's a necessity. We must be proactive. Include self-care activities into your day just as you would your fitness and nutrition. Having a plan and strategy for self-care will help you stay on top of your mental and physical health. Being intentional requires planning. Dedicate time for each extension of self. Things to consider when planning. Where to focus your attention. So which extension that you will be working on? How will you engage in the self-care? So what action you're going to take. And finally, when you will engage in the behavior. So set a time each day or out of the week to focus on the action that you choose. Okay, we're going to plan for self-care. Let's give you an example. If I want to better myself as a parent, I can plan to spend time with my children. For example, I can say I will nurture my child, or so myself with children, so me as a parent. How will I engage in that self care? I can read them bedtime stories. When will I engage in this behavior? I read stories with my daughter every night. Okay? So, reason number three your self care isn't helping is because you are not consistent. We all remember that fitness program or gym membership we signed up for at the beginning of the new year that we never followed through with or popped it in once or twice before we talked ourselves out of doing it altogether. You could be doing this with your self care practice as well, falling into the trap of only engaging in self care behaviors every so often. This inconsistency is in part due to lack of planning. If you are not proactive in your daily self care, it becomes harder to stay in front of anxiety and depressive symptoms related to stress. Another reason you're inconsistent is there's no purpose driving you. Finding a why that resonates with you, as discussed in the first part of the training, can give you the motion or motivation to stick with your self care plan. Now, I hesitate to state the need for support in this area. Although support from friends and family and even counselors and physicians are helpful, the true motivation must come from within. This is called intrinsic motivation. We will only be consistent with things that we have hold as valuable. Okay, if it's valuable to us, we're going to be more apt to continue that behavior. All right, guys, so alert, major slide coming up. So wake up, everybody, pay attention. Let's jump into the next reason. Reason number 4 that your self care is not helping you is because you are not catering to your full self. I want us to spend a moment at this point as it is a major reason why your self care isn't helping you. What people do not realize is that self is not one dimensional. Humans are very complex, and that includes our mental, physical, and emotional makeup. Our lives become interconnected in a way where everything we do in one area of our lives impacts the other. I have identified essentially 10 extensions of self. So let's take a look at what these extensions are. So, self as an individual, self with God, so our spirituality, self as a child, so your mother and father or parental figure, so you as a child, self with siblings, self with your peers, friends, self in the dating arena, self with your spouse, self you as a parent, self as a student, and self within your career. Now, most people only spend time catering to one or two of these extensions. I will dive deeper into each of these extensions in the upcoming trainings. For now, I just want you to grasp the understanding that self-care must incorporate all of you in each one of these versions. None of us exists in isolation from the world around us, thus making how we present ourselves to the world more interpersonal. When we develop an extension, we operate with a set of expectations as to how we want to present ourselves, how we choose to act, and what parts of ourselves we share with other people. This selective presentation is what makes each one of these versions a unique representation of who you are. So think about this. Can you present your friend self to your parents? So can your parents sit with you and your friends while you continuously, uninhibitedly be you as you would be with your friends? Now, some of you can say yes to that because you have a type of relationship with your parents, but most of the time you're still going to tailor some of your behavior because you as a child, so you with your parents, and you with your friends are completely different people. You act different, you share different things, right? You interact differently. different version of you. Your parents probably don't know that version of you. Okay? Are you connecting your parent self to your work self? I've had this happen where you're treating your colleagues like your children. All right? Are you connecting those two? All right? Just something to think about how different these versions of you are. In this line of question, it makes me also think of in-laws. Okay? So if you are a married or have a significant other, so boyfriend even, and their parents, and if you spoke to their parent and said, "Hey, my significant other does XYZ," right? And then that parent goes, "So and so would never do that. I've known him since he was a young boy and he never did blah, blah, blah," right? That person, that parent, does not fully know every version of their child. And you can attest to it. Like, look, I live with him or I know this person. They do it, definitely. Right? So as parents, even then, we forget that we only see one or two versions of our child. And so with that being said, you have to recognize that you have many different versions to offer as well. Okay? How you behave in each one of these areas is fluid. You should always be aiming to grow and strengthen yourself in each one of these extensions. If you're only growing and nurturing one version of yourself, you will become stagnant in the others. Now, I'm going to, like I said, go into more depth in these in different trainings, but I'm going to kind of just touch base a little bit with this. So if we're looking at this list, we want to really isolate and grow ourselves or version of self in each one of these areas. So self as an individual. So as an individual, I want to make sure that I am nurturing the foundation self, which is me standing alone, right? That's my foundational self. That's going to then extend into these other areas of my life. This is where most people hold all of their focus, but not with the intention of extending their foundational self into other areas. More like I think that this is their complete self. So we want to make sure that I'm going to then go in and nurture myself in my relationship with God, and so forth, all the way down the list. Now, looking back at this list, you might be saying, well, I don't have such and such self, right? Maybe I'm not a student, right? This is because you do not always have 10 extensions. As we get older and take on more responsibilities in life, we acquire more extensions. All right, you realize this because you're going to start to feel the strain from being stretched in multiple directions. All right, so let's take a little bit more look into this. So think of yourself at this stage as a decagon. All right, you are like the image that is on the right, with a different version radiating from your unique, complete individual self. In theory, we are born with about 3 extensions, although we're not consciously connected with all 3 in the way that I'm discussing right now. This is when we're doing self-care for our extensions of self now, this is with more consciousness, with more awareness, with more maturity. As a child, you're not that conscious and aware of these extensions, although they do exist. Okay? So when we look at the diagram on the left, you will have 3 extensions like this triangle right here. All right? But think of it more as the ones all the way on this irregular side. So you see you have the regular ones here, then you have your irregular ones on this side. You are an irregular polygon. Okay? And that's because when we're talking about planning the time that we spend in each one of these areas, and when we go on to hierarchy, they're going to be different for each extension. So they're not going to look neat and orderly like these images here. Okay, I'm going to spend, this is probably going to be my, I don't know, peers and friends, because this is my parenting side and this is my career is really important. So it's going to look really, really different. So think of yourself more as an irregular polygon versus I have all these equally, nice, neat lines extending from me. It's not accurate. Okay, so I want you to think yourself more of an irregular decagon, super weirdly shaped, depending on how you extend your time in planning for each one of these sections. All right, but anyway, so back to those 3 extensions. So think of it as this irregular triangle up here when you're born. Okay, so the first three extensions you have are going to be yourself, your parenting, so you as a child, and you as God. Now, if you don't believe in God, sorry, that's where we're going with this. Okay, so those are your three extensions. After you're born, you might have sibling extensions, so you might become a quadrilateral, right? Because you'll forge that connection. Now, that is only going to be an extension for real when you become a lot more aware of the presence and the importance of this sibling for you. Because in order to nurture an area, you have to be aware that this area and extension exists. Because when we're talking about self-care, it's intentional. I'm actually trying to project a certain image of myself, right? Self-care, self. I want me to be seen as XYZ in this relationship, in this exchange, and thus I'm going to cater and nurture this relational interaction. Okay? But you'll have that extra extension of you as a sibling. So that might give you 4. Now, if you're an only child, you might never have that. Maybe your extension doesn't exist there. All right? All right, so like I said, from here, you'll just keep growing and getting more and more extensions as you forge more connections and grow and mature in life. So hopefully this is not confusing. If it's, just remember that I'm going to do a detailed training on each of these extensions and how to engage in self-care specific to the extensions in later training. Okay? So right now, you're a decagon, all right? Decagon. Tell people, like, look, we need to attend to our full selves. We're decagons. Irregularly, but we're decagons. All right? Okay? So moving on to reason number 5. Reason number 5, your self-care isn't helping you is because you do not have your priorities in order. So effective self-care requires that you establish a hierarchy of yourselves or extensions of self. So recall the slide we discussed on being intentional with our self-care, looking at where, how, and when in planning to take care of ourselves. When we are prioritizing, we are focusing on the how long portion of the planning. So how long we're going to spend in each area attending to self-care practices. To do this effectively, you must rank your extensions of self in the order of importance. This is going to help you determine which extension requires most of your focus at a given moment. Just take a moment and think about it. When you do this, when you engage in self-care, are you putting yourself as an individual last? Right? This is your foundational self. Are you putting yourself last all the time? So we're looking at this example from the last slide on being intentional. When we use the example of yourself as a parent, and if you are one, if not, I mean, this is just an example when we're planning, right? So we're going to plan where to focus our attention, how we're going to do it, and when we're going to do it. And this now hierarchy is how long I'm going to engage in it. Now, as a parent, I should put my child fairly high up on my list, right? So I'm going to engage and devote a significant amount of time here. Okay. Now, I hear a lot of the question brewing in your minds. You're reading this example and you're going, how does reading to my child a bedtime story self-care? How does that take care of me, right? Like I said, you are a decagon. When you're considering your complete self, you want to nurture the relationships that are attached to the extensions, right? You as a parent is a self. That's part of who you are. If you have an identity, right, yourself and identity, you, who you are, being a parent is a part of that identity. You have to nurture that version of yourself, which includes the child. They're a part of you. You are not a parent without the child. Okay? So you need to remember that. All right? So when you're talking about extensions, there's specific qualities, right, that I will show in this setting with these people or with this person that I want to nurture and exude. So the qualities of a parent would be like, I want to be nurturing. I want them to think that I'm caring and kind and loving. Like those are the things that I want them to know about their mom, dad, whoever, right? So reading a book at bedtime is one of the ways I can help relay those qualities to my child and thus strengthen myself as a parent, right? You're now seeing these qualities. I'm being better, showing you these qualities. Thus, now myself as a parent is being more solid. It's more relaxing to be a parent, if that's a thing, right? So I'm making it mentally a better place for me to be as a parent, right? Because we know if there's chaos with your child, you will feel it mentally. All this is attached to you, okay? It's not in isolation, they're all connected. So engaging in these behaviors to nurture these relationships helps keep you sane, right? Because it's strengthening those areas and thus you, okay? I'm going to go further into planning in another training. I just wanted you guys to kind of look at this and understand that when we're doing hierarchy, we're talking about how long, because it depends on how important, how much time and attention I'm going to spend in this area. So ranking your extension is important as your versions of self might start to conflict over time and compete for your attention, right? This is your one person. These are just extensions of you. Okay. So understand at the root of this, it's just you. So sometimes those responsibilities or versions might start to conflict and compete for ranking. So for example, your career self might start to interfere with you as a parent. Okay, so you becoming too busy for your child or vice versa. So say you might have a sick child that keeps you away from work. All right, they're starting to clash. I can't show my boss that I'm punctual and timely in this. Those are the qualities I want to show here. This is who I am at work, my work self. I can't exude those qualities and forge a good relationship with my customers, my clients, my boss if I'm not there, if I'm calling out all the time, right? That's not nurturing that relationship. They're like, and so thus my career self is starting to cause, there's a strain there, right? Or vice versa with my child. I'm like, I gotta go to work. I'm busy. I gotta make money. Now my kid doesn't think that I'm caring, nurturing, loving. You see, everybody's connected, but you have to be what you want to be in each one of those areas. You have to nurture them. But sometimes, like I said, they start to conflict. They start to overlap because you are a singular individual with all of these branches. Okay, so the best way is to create a hierarchy, and we're going to complete a quick activity. So to give you kind of a visual. So take out a piece of paper and number it 1 to 10. It's going to be kind of like a pyramid that you see pictured here on the screen. And you're going to just rank those cells that were listed. You're going to rank them from 1 to 10 from order of importance. To you, what do you believe are your priorities? Where are you going to focus most of your attention first? This is going to take the bulk of my top triangle here. It's upside down triangle because this is the bulk of my time, right? And then on down to like, I'm going to devote attention because it's still a part of me. It's just not the most prominent part. I'm going to give you a second to do that. Okay, so ranking is a delicate balancing act, okay? Your most important priorities are going to be at the top. The two versions of self that must always remain top priority in self-care are your individual self and spirituality. Those are always, always, always at the top. I already know, I already hear it. No, it's not. My kids are. No, they're not. Sorry, they're not. Why? Because if all else fails, if everything else ceases to exist, if those relationships fall apart, if those people disappear, the versions of you that will remain front and center are you, just you in the rawness of you. So you as an individual, just me. Not me going to work, me doing that, just me existing in life. Okay? And you with spirituality, your connectedness outside of yourself, right? These are the foundations on which all the other selves are built. Okay, so faith and spirituality is the basis of morality, redemption, and purpose. Okay, without it, we feel lost and incomplete, searching for meaning in life. Your individual self must be secure. I have to be solid. I have to have a strong self-concept, high self-esteem, and self-efficacy. All right, there's videos on my page in regards to what these are, but you have to have that. You have to know yourself and love yourself. And when you do, you are exuding that level of self-assuredness in other aspects of your life. So those two have to be solid, because then I'll use those same principles of spirituality in my relationship with God to be a better parent, right? To have integrity in my career, to interact with my peers in a way that's wholesome, that I believe, right? So these are foundational selves. This foundational versions. They're existing outside of anything else. Before kids came, you were you. Before the job came, you were you. right? So that's what we're talking about. Those are the two at the top. All right. And if we don't put ourselves first at the top, our individual self, and we're not solid in that area, what will happen is in these other areas, you'll start to seek out the missing pieces that you feel, you might not acknowledge them, but you'll feel that void and you'll start to seek it out in other people and become frustrated when they don't affirm us the way you hope, right? If you're not complete as your individual self, you might have a child with the hope that that child will love you enough to fill the void that you had before you had them. Or you'll pick out your spouse, boyfriend, hoping that they'll fill the void that spirituality and God or your connectedness to something greater should have filled. Or you'll swallow up the voids with career and work yourself to death, right? So this is why those two pieces of you need to be solid. Those are your foundations, although they're upside down. They're upside down foundations, okay? But anyway, as you complete this activity, just keep in mind that um, you'll need to reorganize this from time and time again. Obviously, with exception of the spirituality and your individual self, you're going to reorganize your other hierarchies, right? Parenting might always be third. Why? Because you don't get rid of your kids at any point. Well, I mean, you shouldn't get rid of your kids, even grown, right? I still call my mom and be like, hey, so me as a child is still, alive and present. And so it will be the same thing for you. Okay. So, if you have a kid, you might put your career down, right? If your career was third to you, right, you're really focused on that, and now you became a parent, you might postpone your career to raise your child and then reorganize that and recognize that your career ambitions have to, go down a little bit so you can have a quality self. All right. So this is why hierarchy must be intentionally ranked. So you have to really think about where you're placing these and the importance it has to you. Being intentional about how you prioritize your self-care brings these actions to the forefront of your mind. And it also brings greater awareness and control over how you interact in these areas, right? We're trying to be intentional. We don't want to react to being stressed, right? We want to stay on top of it. So we're not stressed. We want to minimize the stress in these areas because we're really thinking about it. We're really putting in the time and effort. Okay? So, guys, thank you for hanging in there. We got a little history lesson. We brought it all down to our decagon, our extensions of ourselves. And like I said, we're going to take a lot of time diving into this. So don't even worry if you were like, I get it, but like, tell me more. Trust me, I am. I just don't want to keep you for the rest of your lives in this training. So we're going to break it down to bite-sized pieces. We're going to start with our foundational selves, right? Our foundation has to be solid so we can build the rest of ourselves and exude those things and qualities that we want people to see. So just a summary of the class. Once again, thank you for hanging in there and making it to the last of the slides. Okay, so self-care, wrapped it up, should be purposeful. You need to know why and the result you wish to receive from self-care. Why am I engaging in this? Why am I even taking care of? Why am I taking deep breaths? For what? Why do I need to go sit under the tree? Why? What does it do for me? Okay. What's the result? What am I trying to do? Being intentional. So planning for your self-care. After lunch, I'm going to go take a walk, and that's going to help me decompress. So when I come back, I can maintain a level of demeanor while I'm in this meeting. See, I'm planning this out. I already know I'm going to need this walk. Okay. So being intentional. Be consistent. Find your motivation. Stick to your plan. I need to keep taking walks at lunch break. If I don't take a walk at lunch break, I need to, I don't know, get a glass of water, sit in my car and read my Bible or whatever. I'm going to be consistent and planning to take care of myself. I'm not just going, oh man, I'm so stressed. Let me go hurry up and do something real quick and then go back to what I was doing, right? We're being consistent. We're being intentional and purposeful. We're going to care for our complete self. Now that we understand that we are not just us as individuals, there's so many versions of us out there that we only show in those areas, and we need to cater to them individually, right? We feel the weight of those versions of self when we get into that version or when that version starts to fall apart, right? If my relationship with my spouse starts to crumble, I'm not going to be very good at work. I'm probably going to be fussy as a parent, right? I'm not going to be able to focus. It impacts me. My kid not doing well, I got to call out of work. I can't study for school. I can't even focus on trying to read and write papers, and now I got this going on. It starts, you'll feel it, because that version is not solid. I need to get over there and get it rectified as a parent, right? Or get my marriage together, or whatever it is, right? Those versions are important, and they're individualized, and they all interconnect with each other. So you need to care for your complete self. Don't stop at the individual level when it comes to self-care. Nurture every part of you so that you can be successful in every part of your life. And we're going to prioritize. Set boundaries on the time spent on each extension of self. If you skip this step, it can cause extensions to overlap and become toxic to others, okay? So, like I said, ripple effect. It's just you at the center of it all. You just have branches coming out of you. So it's easy for things to take up time and overlap for you. If I say I'm going to be done at work, I got to put boundaries like, look, I need my weekends. I cannot mess up my parenting self. All right. My kids trust me to be timely and to keep my word. So put the boundary up. Sorry, boss. I understand it's important. This is only a part of my life. This is not my whole life. All right. Parent life is over here. I got to get to that. Okay. Or I just need a break. Look, I got to go on vacation. Bye. Okay. So don't skip it. Don't skip it. All right, and that concludes our lesson for today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for hanging in there. I appreciate your time, your support, and your listening ear. Here are just some of my platforms. You are more than welcome to check out, subscribe to our YouTube channel. These are all posted there. You are more than welcome to browse the other ones, other trainings and snippets and vlogs and everything as they're being posted. Hit the notification bell so you're notified when there's another training. We always have free trainings, so look out for the postings, sign up for webinars, and be more active and in person with these trainings. Like our page on Facebook. That's also linked to our YouTube. Everything is connected, so we'll post on Facebook as a notification to when we are going to upload, or when there is an upload or event or anything new going on for Read Fundamentals. Like I said before, I'm open for coaching or other business collaborations, so feel free to call me between 9 and 5, Monday through Friday, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Leave a message if I don't answer. And our website is under reconstruction, so sorry we are not able to direct you to that right now, but keep it in mind so when we are up and live again, you can see all the great things that are listed there. All right. Pleasure. See you guys again. Once again, subscribe. See you later.